Thank you for joining me. It is Saturday. Our last video of the week is going to be our start sits. We're going to talk about the top 12 injuries and updates that we've heard throughout the week and update our player rankings. And then at the end of the video, we're going to go over our final start tier so we can give you a detailed walkthrough of who exactly you should be starting to build your ultimate lineups to dominate tomorrow. If you have any start sit questions, please drop those down below. If you are new or if you haven't done it yet, please like and subscribe. It allows me to do what I love and continue to bring you content that you love. I'll put it up later when I do the start tiers, but you can hit me up on the Sleeper app as well at The Real Guru, The Guru, and Real all capitalized if you want to chat. Without further ado, let's get into start sits. We'll start talking about Khalil Herbert, the running back for Chicago. With Damian Williams out due to COVID, Herbert slides into that RB2 range. There isn't really anyone else in Chicago that can handle a workload, so he should see plenty of touches against the Packers. Next, we're going to move to Antonio Gibson, who was initially listed without a designation when they put their final injury report out. 20 minutes later, Washington added him in as questionable. Now, he should play without limitations, and he is a top 10 running back for us this week. Next, we're going to talk about Joe Mixon. He goes against the Lions, and we've been watching this closely as he had a limited workload last week. Now, Zach Taylor, the coach in Cincinnati, said that he should be in line for a full workload on Sunday. This is great news for owners, and he is a must start in a plus matchup against the Lions. Newly added as of yesterday is Alex Collins. They're playing the Steelers. The Seattle running back will now slide in for Chris Carson, who went on IR with that neck injury he sustained prior to last week. This is a pretty decent matchup for Collins. He's borderline a risky flex for us as the offense is led by Geno Smith, and we don't know exactly what the Hawks are going to be able to do. We move to Dalvin Cook at Carolina. More good news for owners as he put in a full practice on Thursday. He is a locked and loaded RB1 for us this week. He moves all the way up to RB5 overall. Unfortunately for owners who drafted him most likely first overall, Run CMC Christian McCaffrey is going to miss at least one more game with that hamstring injury. So Chuba Hubbard immediately moves to that RB2 range. He has a decent matchup against my Vikings this week, and he should see a very hefty workload there. Finally, we move to Kareem Hunt for running backs. And we're talking about the matchup with Arizona, which we like. Nick Chubb has been ruled out this week. So Hunt is now a must start. He was already at 11 for us. He now moves into our top 10. Now, he is questionable, so we need to keep a close eye on his situation just in case. And with kickoff being the second set of games for this one, you want to have a backup plan in place. A emergency start if Hunt were out could be Dearness Johnson, the little-known running back there, as he would be the next man up. Let's move to wide receivers, where we start with a former stud who has been banged up most of this season thus far in Julio Jones. He was a full participant in Thursday's practice and is looking like he is going to play. However, with that matchup against Buffalo being so tough, he's nothing more to us than a very risky flex play. Terry McLaurin is the next guy we're going to discuss, and he had hamstring tightness that held him out of practice on Friday. While he should play, we need to monitor the situation closely. Adam Humphries might be a decent sneaky start if McLaurin misses, because Curtis Samuel for the Washington football team is already out with an injury. Dynamite Brown, the rookie other wide receiver there, is questionable as well. So a lot of question marks going into the game for Washington. Our wide receiver 2 this week, Tyreek Hill, is questionable but is expected to play. If for whatever reason he would miss, Mecole Hardman would skyrocket all the way up to a wide receiver to play for us in what should be a high-scoring affair against Washington. He slides right in behind Emmanuel Sanders if that was the case. There's a lot to discuss for the New York Giants as they have a bevy of pass catchers who have been banged up throughout the week. We start with Shepard, who was cleared and does not carry an injury designation heading into the game. He is good to go. Kadarius Toney has had a breakout last couple of games for the Giants, and he is expected to play, although he is still dealing with a knee injury and is questionable. Finally, Darius Slayton is going to likely be a game-time decision, and he's not someone we're considering starting now. Anyway, Kenny Golladay is officially out. If you're playing one of these guys, Toney is my preference, and then Shepard. I think both are risky flexes at best, however, and best left on benches unless you are devoid of other options. The last player we're going to touch on before we get to our start, sit, final tiers, and that is Mike Williams, who could be a true game time decision after dealing with a knee injury and not practicing all week. I slide Keenan Allen immediately up into that must-start wide receiver 1 category, and we move Mike Williams down just a bit. A couple reminders, we are doing this based on half-point PPR. And if you're making a decision between one player or another in your flex spot, I almost always lean towards the running back of the same tier than I would a wide receiver. We're going to start with the running backs that you absolutely must start this week, and that starts with none other than Austin pound for pound Eckler, who is going to crush it. Najee Harris has a fantastic matchup and should do big damage against that Seahawks defense. King Henry is a starter every single week. And now James Robinson is here at 4 for us. I love the matchup and the production that he's had of late. With the news that Dalvin Cook is going to be healthy, he slides into number 5. Zeke Elliott is our 6th player. And Jonathan Taylor, fresh off of his monster week last week, is in at 6. Aaron Jones is next. He gets a tougher matchup against the Bears, but his volume will carry him through. Joe Mixon should get a full workload. We talked about that, so I like him enough to put him next. Antonio Gibson, who hasn't been as limited as in the past couple weeks with that shin injury, looks good to go and should see plenty of opportunities against the Chiefs. We have Darrell Henderson Jr., who has been balling of late and should continue that. And then finally, Kareem Hunt, with the news that Chubb is out, is going to be a great start for us here. We now move to our second tier of options at running back, and that starts with Deandre Swift, who has been amazing almost every week so far this season. He'll see another hefty workload this week. Next, we have Daryl Williams. Fresh off of waivers, he should see plenty of touches in a high-scoring affair against Washington. Chuba Hubbard shoots all the way up into this second tier with news that CMC is out. And then finally, Josh Jacobs and Khalil Herbert finds himself here as well, now that Williams for Chicago is also out with that COVID issue. I think there's plenty of upside in this tier. Many of these guys could produce at RB1 levels if they see some touchdown luck. Our third tier of running backs are guys that are going to be great flex play options for you. Now, they're probably not going to boom this week, but they should have safe enough floors where they don't kill you in your lineups. And that starts with Zach Moss, who's done nothing but score double digits every game this season. Myles Gaskin is a big question mark for us. We don't know if we're going to see what he was 2 weeks ago, where he had 2 carries for 3 yards, or last week, where he exploded for 10 catches and 2 touchdowns against the Bucs. Next up, we have a little bit of a bump is Javonte Williams, because Melvin Gordon is still potentially dealing with an issue with his knee and is questionable. Devontae Booker comes fresh off of waivers to give you solid RB2 volume, and he should produce in that flex spot. And then Latavius Murray, question marks abound about what his workload is going to be, but he gets a absolutely amazing matchup against the Chargers defense that cannot stop anyone. I think he probably falls into the end zone once and gets enough volume to give you a decent flex. As we move to our fourth tier, these guys start to carry a little more risk, but some of them do have a little more boom potential, so it depends upon what the rest of your lineup looks like if you decide to put these guys in. Tony Pollard has been amazing with his touches so far this season. He's just not seeing quite the volume you'd like to make him up towards that RB2 level. Next, we have Jamal Williams, who's been a little banged up and is questionable to play in this game. He should play, however, the upside is sapped a little bit from Deandre Swift, and unless he steals a touchdown or two, he'll be nothing more than a 6 to 10 point play. Now we have Melvin Gordon, who we've moved down a little bit because of that injury. He should still be fine. And then Damian Harris for New England is our next man up. There's just question marks about what his workload's going to be. Is he in the doghouse with Bill Belichick? He's also dealing with multiple injuries. Alex Collins slides here up next due to the news that Chris Carson is going to miss against Pittsburgh. I think you'll see decent volume in this game. I just fear that offense right now. Finally, we get to the Cardinals running backs, and it's a cluster here with both James Conner and Chase Edmonds back-to-back to finish off our fourth tier. I like Conner maybe a little bit more just because he has that touchdown upside as he steals goal line work. Edmonds also catches it more out of the backfield, of course. However, he is dealing with more injuries right now, and he may see limited touches. Our fifth and final tier at running back are more dart throws than anything else. Now, a couple of these guys could actually potentially boom if they steal touchdowns or hit a long gainer. However, we don't love the floor for them, and it could be riskier than you might want to take on for your lineups. We start with J.D. McKissic, who's been off and on. He could see a long touchdown against the Chiefs defense, who can't stop anything so far. We have A.J. Dillon, who is slowly creeping up and stealing touches from Aaron Jones, just not enough where we would warrant anything more than a low flex. Singletary from the Bills is next up. He has clearly become the RB2 there, but he sees a decent amount of volume, enough to make him worth an emergency start. And then finally we round it out with Nyheim Hines, who should get some work in the passing game for the Colts this week. Now let's move into our wide receiver tiers and talk about why we like them. Our smash plays at wide receiver for week 6 starts with Davante Adams, fresh off his monster 206-yard performance against the Bengals. Tyreek Hill is up at 2. Now he is questionable, so keep an eye on it, but he is expected to play, and if he does, he is going to ball out against the football team. Terry McLaurin is our third player on this list. Once again, keep an eye on him, but he should be fine. My little Cooper Kupp slides in at 4. He's been super consistent this year. Stephon Diggs is our 5th ranked player, and I expect a coming out game for him. Justin Jefferson is next, and he has been awesome over the last couple weeks. DJ Moore finds himself next at 8. And we like everything he's doing so far this season, and with CMC out, he will continue to see heavy usage. Jamar Chase has been an absolute revelation for us so far this year. He will continue to roll and has to be locked in. Nuke Hopkins is a little bit underperforming from what we would have expected, but I love his upside, and I think this might be the week where he finally takes over that wide receiver 1 crown. Keenan Allen, we talked about sliding up because we don't know exactly what's going on with Mike Williams. He has to be locked and loaded. And then finally, Deontay Johnson finds himself here because of the great matchup, the injury to Juju, and the production he's had when healthy. Our second tier of wide receivers all has studs in it, which should produce with the volume and the production they've shown so far. It starts with Mike Williams. As long as he's in, you're starting him without worry. Next, we have CeeDee Lamb, who finally came on a little bit last week with that 40-plus yard touchdown. He will continue to get work. We have DK Metcalf falling down a little bit due to that offensive question mark and the quarterback within. Finally, Chase Claypool and Amari Cooper round out our wide receiver 2 tiers. Our third tier of wide receivers are filled with a bunch of players with boom potential that are going to be excellent flexes for most teams, and it starts with Bobby Trees. Robert Woods finally saw a little bit more come his way last week with 14 targets, 12 catches, and 150. I think he continues to roll. Next, we have Marquise Brown, who has been balling all season and should continue it if he can catch. Next, we have Brandon Cooks, who's going to see plenty of volume in that Houston offense, and he finally has a good matchup against the Colts. Next, Adam Thielen, who hasn't had over 50 yards since week 1, should see a rebound in a decent matchup. Tyler Lockett is next. More question marks, like we said about the Seahawks offense, but he always has a boom potential. And then Emmanuel Sanders with an excellent matchup. He's got 4 touchdowns in 3 weeks. Love him here next. And then we finally slide A.J. Brown all the way down to the back of our third tier, and that is just due to that matchup and the fact that he hasn't really performed so far. To 2 tiers left to go, and our fourth starts with T. Higgins, who had a fairly quiet return from injury, but he did see 7 targets, second most for the Bengals. He should respond a little bit more this week. Michael Pittman Jr. is next, and he's starting to see an increase and bump in our rankings due to the fact that Carson Wentz is starting to air it out a little bit. He had 400 yards last week, and I think Pittman does all right in this game. Next, we have Jacoby Myers. He is going to be a volume hog there in that New England offense and should see plenty of looks. Courtland Sutton slides because of the potential shadow from Casey Hayward Jr., but we still think he'll be decent as a flex option. Jalen Waddle is shooting up a little bit due to the injuries in that Miami wide receiver core, and he should see more touches with Tua coming back. He's already seeing 7 targets a game. And then finally, Laviska Shenault should see an uptick in targets. He had a huge 50-yard catch last week. I expect him to be more involved this week. Our 5th tier is players that we're hoping to avoid, but should produce a decent enough floor should you have to start them. It starts with Tyler Boyd, who's just sliding down due to T. Higgins' return. Kadarius Toney, fresh off his monster game last week, sees a couple Giants pass catchers come back. We don't know if Daniel Jones is fully healthy. I just have question marks in that offense as a whole as well, due to the loss of Saquon Barkley. Next, we move on to Marvin Jones, who's been very quiet with just over 50 yards in his last 2 games combined. We don't feel super confident in him. Julio Jones returns from an injury. However, this matchup is brutal, and I do not think that he should be in lineups unless you are in an emergency situation. We move to Sterling Shepard, fresh coming back from that injury. He should be okay, but probably not great. And then finally, Mecole Hardman is there because of the matchup and the question mark around Tyreek Hill. That is over with. I am also available on the Sleeper app. So if you guys have questions that you need a quick answer to, hit me up on there. It's at The Real Guru, no spaces. The capitals are T, R, and G. It's a picture of me at Lumen Field where the Seahawks play in my Vikings gear. Hit me up there for any last second questions as well. If you're new or if you haven't done it yet, please like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. It helps me out a ton. And that's all. Thank you guys for joining me. This is Relentless Press. I am your host, Avery Mopat, and we'll see you next time.